So Donald Trump is threatening to invade Greenland. I mean, threatening like we might use the military, threatening full imperial acquisition, just taking it from Denmark, our NATO ally. And the official White House response when asked why we can't just work with Denmark, since Denmark has already said they're willing to collaborate on troops, on minerals, on intelligence sharing. The official response is, who said diplomacy isn't happening behind the scenes, right? Because nothing says diplomacy like publicly refusing to rule out a military invasion. It's basically a shakedown with a diplomatic accent. This started on, January 3rd, when Trump posted that owning Greenland is an absolute necessity for U.S. national security. Then he refused multiple times to rule out using military force to take it. But watching his press secretary try to spin an invasion of an ally as diplomacy it's truly a sight to behold.
Carolina, you just talked to Jackie about diplomacy first, right? The Danes have repeatedly said they are willing to collaborate on all of the concerns that the president has, whether it's more troops, mineral rights, intelligence sharing. Why does the president feel he needs to own Greenland and not and put out the threat of military action when this could be done through diplomacy?
Well, who said diplomacy isn't taking place behind the scenes, Dasha? I mean, the president is interested in diplomacy. His national security team is as well. And of course, he's always willing to pick up the phone for everybody and hear out their concerns. But the president is the president of the United States of America, and he's always going to be very clear about what he views as being in our nation's best interest.
Who said diplomacy isn't taking place? We did. The rest of the world did, because when you hold a gun to your friend's head and ask for their wallet, if you call that negotiation, no, that is armed robbery. Levitt says Trump is always going to be very clear about what he views as being in our nation's best interest. Translation, we want what we want, and if you don't give it to us, we've made it very clear that force is on the table. Call it what it is, a threat, and here's the reality check. This goes way beyond simply annoying the Danes. It actively dismantles our most critical alliances. When the President of the United States threatens a NATO member, other NATO members have to step in. And it's going well when the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom has to go on television and basically tell the American president to back off.
You just reiterate then to our Danish allies that you would condemn Trump going into Greenland, just to be clear.
Well, let me be really clear about Greenland. The future of Greenland is for Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark. Denmark is a close European ally, a close NATO ally, and the future therefore has to be for Greenland, for the Kingdom of Denmark, and only for Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark, and we're absolutely clear about that.
The Danish Prime Minister's told Trump to stop the threats about Greenland. Do you agree with her?
Well, I stand with her.
Okay.
And she's right about the future of Greenland.
Okay.
That is Keir Starmer, our closest ally across the pond, having to publicly side with Denmark against the United States. Think about how humiliating that is. The UK is saying, yeah, the guy in the White House is out of his mind and we stand with the people he's threatening. This creates a crisis in the actual concept of international order. If the US can threaten territorial seizure without consequence, why can't China? Why can't Russia? Trump is creating a permission structure for every authoritarian regime on the planet. But don't worry, right? Because the Republicans in Congress are on the case. And by on the case, I mean they are admitting that the whole thing is idiocy, while simultaneously praying that their dear leader is just joking. Take Senator John Kennedy. He's usually the first in line to defend Trump's worst impulses. But even he couldn't find a way to spin this one without admitting that the idea itself is, well, listen to the phrase he uses.
What questions do you have that the U.S. is seizing tankers in the North Atlantic?
Look, I don't know what they're going to tell us today, but you don't have to be Einstein's cousin to figure out that at this juncture, two things are true. Number one, to invade Greenland would be weapons grade stupid. And Donald Trump is not weapons grade stupid. Neither is Marco Rubio. Number two, you can pretty this up all you want to. But unless you were playing Frisbee in the quad during History 101, you know that the future of Venezuela, one way or the other, is going to be determined by the military. Every time Venezuela has embraced democracy, it has been because the military has gone along. Every time Venezuela has rejected democracy, it has happened because of the military. In this case, let me finish, man, if you don't mind, unless you want to come up here. This is not true in all cases, but in this respect, Mao was right. Power grows from the barrel of a gun. And the military here is key. And that's all there is to it. I got to go. See.
Weapons grade. That is a sitting Republican senator describing the policy proposal of the sitting Republican president. Now, Kennedy tries to pivot immediately afterwards to save face, claiming that Donald Trump isn't weapons grade stupid. Really? Are you sure about that, Senator? Because he's the one who proposed it. You can't call the idea moronic and then call the guy who had the idea a genius in the same breath. But Kennedy did say one thing that matters. He pivoted to Venezuela. Because while we're all distracted by the weapons grade stupid Greenland talk, the administration is actually moving pieces on the board in South America. And Kennedy quotes Mao Zedong, power grows from the barrel of a gun to justify it. So we've gone from invading NATO allies to quoting communist dictators in the span of about, 30 seconds? And if you think Kennedy is confused, listen to Congressman Thomas Massie. He's one of the few Republicans who actually votes against war authorizations. And even he sounds like he's trying to wake up from a fever dream.
What do you think the implications are for them trying to take over Greenland or taking over Colombia or the rest?
I don't know what timeline we're living in where they're talking about taking over Greenland. Maybe the one good thing to come out of that is NATO dissolves and we won't have to pay for NATO.
The president has also said that...
What about Colombia and Cuba? He's saber rattling about Colombia and Cuba too. Does that concern you?
I think it's ridiculous. I mean, we're going to do a war powers resolution for Venezuela again. Hopefully this doesn't become a weekly event. But there's no... these things are popular right now, and I know he's sort of basking in the popularity of it, but I believe it has the possibility of wearing thin and the popularity flipping on this when and if you have civil unrest in Venezuela and the situation gets out of control.
Why?
No, they didn't say why.
Would you back something like a war powers resolution or other measure against an invasion of Greenland of the sort that Ruben Gallego has spoken about introducing?
I guess as soon as he does something in that direction, a lot of the things that Trump does are just bluffs and then they turn out to be nothing. But in the case of Venezuela, it turned out to be something. So, you could spend a lot of time trying to anticipate what he might do next. I think it might be premature.
Are there any areas of clarification that you're hoping to get during the all-House briefing tomorrow?
I don't think there'll be any clarification that comes from this administration. They still haven't even figured out how they're running that country.
I don't know what timeline we're living in. That is the profound confession of the modern GOP. They don't know either. They're holding on for dear life while the driver steers the bus off a cliff. But catch what Massie says right after that. He says, a lot of the things that Trump does are just bluffs and then they turn out to be nothing. This is the danger. The defense is literally, don't worry. The president he's just lying to everyone. Massie admits that in the case of Venezuela, it turned out to be something. So we are operating under a foreign policy doctrine of maybe he'll start a war, maybe he won't. Let's roll the dice. Massie says he hopes this doesn't become a weekly event. Let that sit for a second. Forget the illegal invasion of a sovereign nation or the betrayal of an ally. The real terror here is the frequency of the chaos. He's worried it's going to get annoying to have to explain this every week. Here is the brilliance of the con. They flood the zone with so much weapons-grade stupid that you stop trying to distinguish between the bluffs and the bombs. They threaten Greenland so you don't look at Venezuela. They quote Mao so you don't look at the Constitution. Massie admits they still haven't even figured out how they're running it. That is high-stakes gambling with our national security. And if you think that's funny, just remember, Denmark isn't laughing, and neither should we. Before you go, if you enjoyed this content and you want to see more and support independent media, please subscribe to this channel. The subscribe button will be right here on the screen. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much for watching.